Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast, where we explore cutting-edge strategies to keep teams human-centered, drive innovation, and empower you with the tools and insights needed to help your team excel and thrive in today's world. Your host is Dane Groeneveld, a seasoned expert with over 20 years of experience enhancing team dynamics and innovation. Today, Dane is joined by Kelley Morse. Kelley is the Chief People Officer at Bullhorn, responsible for leading the global human resources organization, including talent acquisition, HR business partners, people operations, compensation, learning and development, analytics, employee experience, and ensuring the organization maintains its strong culture as it grows. Prior to joining the team, Kelley spent her career partnering with business leaders to build out people programs and teams at high-growth startups, including Concert AI and Flywire. This episode is a reminder that connection doesn't just happen, it's designed. You'll hear how Bullhorn reimagined cross-functional collaboration, what really makes people feel part of an organization after an acquisition, and how a voluntary leave program unexpectedly reignited engagement across the business. Kelley shares what she's learning about trust, belonging, and balance between structure and humanity when leading teams through growth and change. So, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're here to inspire your next collaborative breakthrough. Gather your team or put on your headphones, and let's dive in together.
Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name is Dane Groeneveld, and today I'm joined by Kelley Morse. Kelley is the Chief People Officer at Bullhorn, and we've had a couple of opportunities to catch up on what she's been doing in and around teams. So I'm super excited for the conversation today. Welcome, Kelley.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and I think we'll have a lively one.
Yeah, I'm sure. So talking about lively, like what was it that brought you to be doing this work and having the impact that you're having as you're building and managing teams in organizations?
Yeah, I've spent my career in startups where you've had to be really scrappy and wear a lot of hats. And I think throughout my career, I've been really fortunate to try on a bunch of different things and see what sort of clicked or really resonated with me. The people side has always been super fascinating, interesting to me. The coaching, team dynamics, interpersonal relationships and communication. And so, my title is Chief People Officer. And so one of the, primary customer groups I have is people. And I just find it such a fascinating area, especially when you think about all the dynamics of people, how they work and who they are in the context. And then you apply that to sort of a business setting. I think it's a super cool role. So, HR gets a bad rap, but I think it's a super fun space. And I found my little home here.
That's neat. And you predominantly worked in more like tech, biotech, software businesses that are really building stuff.
All of it. I've worked in event marketing. I've worked at a hedge fund for a very short period of time. Wow. I did a biotech stint. I did fintech. I did a medical AI company, which I was really confused by. That was like 6 years ago before AI was a real thing. And then I landed here at Bullhorn, which we're a staffing platform serving the staffing industry, which that industry was new to me in terms of industry. But my skills, a lot of people in HR, it's people and dynamics. And so they're very transferable.
Yeah, it's neat. I know when we first caught up, we had an interesting conversation about why HR gets a bad rap. So often in organizations, HR has a role to play in structuring those team dynamics like you talked about. And yet there tends to be a bit of a clash sometimes between executive teams and HR, or, perhaps HR becomes a little bit of a scapegoat for when things are going poorly. So I'm intrigued, like, where you think it's perhaps got off track for some of us in the industry over the years.
Yeah, I don't know that HR per se has gotten off track. I feel like back in the day when it was like personnel and policy police, right? Yeah. That sort of has always been the undercurrent of HR. And I think there are a lot of practitioners out there who still sort of react and live in that way of like policy and compliance and like business, this. And I think there's, and I would put myself in this group, a lot more strategic thinkers who have brought a human side to HR and has been working very, very, very hard over the last 10, 15 years to evolve the function. It is no fun to be HR police. We do have to play some of that role, but it doesn't have to be that way in everything that we do. So I'd say the function is evolving, and the bad rap is like a legacy holdover. So it's
From
really
the policing compliance elements.
yeah, and like, no one wanted to hang out with HR because they weren't that fun, and they're invited to a party and everyone's worried about like what they have to say, and I think there's a very human element to HR, and like I think if you bring it to the table, people receive you better, they tell you more things, they confide in you, you're able to like dig even deeper into some of these dynamics and things that are going on in the business and the relationships. So I often say to people, there was an intern that started recently and I was on a call, and I think it was his first call with me, and I slang a couple F-bombs and, swear words across the table. And then I was like, oh, hi, I'm the chief people officer. Like, welcome. Sorry, I could be a little bit more professional, but like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I actually like that. And I'm finding, I've had this conversation with a few people lately, that, this whole authenticity, it's not sort of bring your whole self to work. I know that gets a bad rap, talking about bad raps, but that authenticity of sort of sharing where you're at, how you engage with people, and not putting that sort of corporate coat of armor on is actually huge for just building connection and trust and giving people a bit of inspiration along the way too.
Dane, I think to your point is having to put on the armor and pretend to be something you're not feeling in that point in time takes a lot of energy. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so I actually think it like holds teams back when people just can't be real about what they're going through or how they're feeling. And like, you just spend so much energy trying to be something you're not embracing that day, which I think is just inefficient and a waste of time.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, as you think about what's emerging now, I know we were having some conversations pre-show around how teams have got all of this flexibility in how they work and how, you can be more intentional about those special moments, those moments that move the team forwards or create clarity or whatever it might be. What is it that you've seen that's been working well, in recent years? What do you think we're going to see more of as we continue to go forward strategically, partnering with leaders and teams?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned pre-show, we're in an evolution, right? 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever you want to call it, it was very much co-location, in person, and that's where teamwork happened. We went opposite way, right? We've talked about this at length, everyone at home. And now everyone's trying to figure out and come back, where does the pendulum sort of land in between? And I think the thing that's most exciting to me now is the fact that we have choice. And it's not every day we have to be together, but when we are together, we've made a very intentional decision to be together and to, spend a couple days, in person together, if that's the case. And I think that's really cool. And at Bullhorn, we've done a couple things in the last 18 months around setting aside budget to bring cross-functional teams together.
Cool.
As you think about, I'll give you an example, my team, my HR team, it's really easy to say, okay, 2-3 times a year, we get together, we have an offsite. But think about all the cross-functional projects that happen across a company. And there's no like head of that who's got a budget, who's thinking about how do I get these people in person to move the needle or to, get the ball over the line. Yeah. And so we set aside some of our budget to allocate to those cross-functional teams to bring them together. A lot of these teams have been working together for, quite some time on a project and have never even met. Right. Yeah. And so you think about getting people together and like breaking bread and having a meal and working on big meaty things together and whiteboarding. That alone is powerful, but the relationships that are built when they do that then go forward when we're all back at home again. So those, we call them cross-functional teams, like bringing those cross-functional teams together has been really impactful. And like the teams can't stop talking, like they've been so impactful. So.
And that's critical because I know the data right now is saying that engagement in intact teams is actually climbing because intact teams have more agency as to which tools they use and when they choose to work and have meetings. But actually across teams in an organization, cross-functionally, we're seeing increased tension and reduced engagement.
Yeah.
So, it's a big area for us to be keeping an eye on.
Huge, huge. And think about, having some sort of conflict. You're on a team together. You don't know this person. They work in sort of a different, smaller semi-culture. You now have a conflict. You have nothing, no foundation of a relationship to sort of help, at Bullhorn, some of our core values help underline that foundational relationship and things they can point back to. But I just think if you've never met someone and you've got a conflict, it's really, really challenging to sort of work through that without any sort of history together.
Oh, absolutely. I find that over the last 5 years, even in some of my teams, we've seen leaders having to step in and play referee more, which isn't necessarily healthy. It would be way better if the two peers were able to come together and create clarity around where the tension was and how to overcome the problem. But when you bring leaders in to play referee, there's always like a lot at stake and it's uncomfortable. And I don't always think we get the best outcomes. And in fact, sometimes I think it damages relationships.
I think you're spot on that. The other thing I'd say is a lot of times people call HR to help negotiate through a conflict. And one of the things that I, struggle with is not taking it on as my own, right? Yeah. It's not my job to get involved. It's my job to give advice and some guidance and provide perspective. Have you thought about them looking at it like this? And I think, if those are your own direct reports or something that are fighting, I think you naturally don't hold yourself back. You get involved. It's a natural tendency as a leader to help your kids through their problems, right? Yeah. But as leaders, I think you're doing yourself a disservice and you're certainly doing the team members a disservice to a certain point. You don't want to let it fester on forever. But sometimes mom and dad have to come in and like make the call and say, shut up. This is the decision we're going with.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. It's true. When you do bring those cross-functional teams together, you mentioned doing the breaking of bread, but also doing the meaty work. Are there particular ways that you've seen that you could workshop the work or you can build ground rules or set tone when you're getting those groups together for the first time?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did was we didn't want it just to be like anybody nominating any sort of work. It was like they have to apply and say like, what the goal of their project is or whatever they're working on. And then what would be the goal of getting together and the outcomes on that. Excellent. And so there was a CFT that happened. Oh man, maybe it was one of our first ones. And for months afterwards, maybe 6 to 8 months, I would get a status report. And it was sent to like a bunch of the different leaders from that cross-functional team on like the progress that they had continued to make. And I just thought that was really cool. And they had decided when they were in person that they were going to start sending those updates. So yeah, we always want to make sure that it's outcome based, that they have an agenda for it. But really those are the only guiding principles. And then the other cool thing is we like to schedule it around times when we have other events going on, like either around our summer party or our holiday party. So it's like come in for a few days, work together as a group, go out to dinner, do an activity. And then also, usually on the last day, come attend the summer party, which has, a bunch of other folks from the area there. So we try to like 2 birds, 1 stone type thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think some businesses do one but not both. They'll come in and do all the work and then go, or they'll do the party and not do the work. So I think, building on the back of kind of the ramp of work and people being more connected and feeling productive and then coming into a party or a celebration would have to bring a lot of additional benefit, I would guess.
Though it's funny you say that because the reason this came to be was we were trying to decide if the parties that we were having had any sort of was making people feel more connected to the company. Yeah. So we surveyed and we said, how do you feel, when you go to a summer party or a holiday party? And like, what makes you actually feel connected to your colleagues and to Bullhorn? And it wasn't the summer party. Surprise, surprise. They didn't leave the party. They had a good time, but they didn't end up feeling any more connected to colleagues. But it was when they were in person working together on work stuff that they felt really connected to the company. So that's how this whole idea was born, actually.
I think that ties heavily to this concept of mattering, which I've been spending a lot of time on this year, which is when you're with colleagues, particularly those that aren't in your direct team, and you can see the impact and the importance of your work on them, it creates just this wider view and this sense of gratitude and appreciation, I think.
100%. 100%. And celebration too, like celebrating
Yeah.
or acknowledging or recognizing the work that they're doing. I'm sure that so much of people's work touches other people, but how often are we actually acknowledging, like, I recognize what you did and that helped me here? We probably don't do nearly enough of that.
No, I think we can all do better there.
Yeah.
I know I had your CEO, Art Pappas, on one of my other shows earlier in the year, and it was a fascinating conversation, particularly when we talked to just the growth that you've been through as a business, organically and with acquisitions. And he talked to the core values, which you mentioned earlier, and I got a good sense that there's an operating system, there's a way of driving the right behaviors right through the organization, particularly when you're bringing new companies in. Would you be able to kind of shine a bit of a light on what your perspective and priorities are when you're looking at those acquisitions and you're looking at acclimating teams into, welcome to Bullhorn?
Yes. Oh man, that's something that's on my mind a lot. So I think we've done, in my tenure here, I think I've done 9 or maybe 10 acquisitions.
It's a lot.
Every one of them is different. Every single one of them has their own culture, has their own way of operating, has their own values, their own teams, their own processes, and all of that. And I think earlier in my career, I had sort of been soft on, well, let's get to know them. Maybe they bring some things to the table culturally, and you kind of merge. And at Bullhorn, when I started, it was very quickly like, no, from day one, you're part of our new team. Here's who we are. And we stand very like firm and strong and proud of it. And at first that was really tough for me because I was like, I've come from startups and I know how special they are. And so I think one of the ways I've gotten around that and sort of my leadership in it is we recognize that when we acquire a company, it's hard for those folks, that they're saying goodbye to a chapter, to something they're so proud of and they've worked so hard for. And, by not their own choice, they've been acquired by this company. And here we are, right? So I think we do a lot of acknowledging and we remind our leaders over and over in the process that this is hard and there is a period of grief for these folks.
Yeah.
And then almost immediately we start to turn and they go through our whole onboarding, who we are, why we're proud, why our employees love to work here. And then we often highlight a lot of the career growth stories of the other folks who've been acquired who have remained on board. So we haven't found the right recipe yet. Some have been more successful than others, but we're just very, very proud of our company, who we are, and our core values. And when we acquire a company, they become part of us.
It's neat. I like you had always been sort of counseled and trained on, let's find the best of both and let's come to this hybrid kind of arrangement.
Yeah.
But when I heard the approach there at Bullhorn, it actually made a lot of sense to me. And what I found was interesting is that there's a lot of emotional turmoil that comes in those change moments, as you shared. People are saying goodbye to a really exciting chapter. And I think the way that you're using grief and giving people time to grieve and actually stating it is very powerful. Because otherwise, someone wakes up 6 months later and they don't know what they're feeling, but it's there. They haven't actually taken the time. There wasn't necessarily the funeral or whatever, or the celebration of what that was.
It's always a bittersweet day, right? Like we're acquiring a company. We're so excited about it. We're bringing this group of new people, new products, whatever it happens to be, into our company. And we go in there and it can be so tone deaf to not recognize that they may not share that same excitement in that day. Or that, hey, I'm going to turn around and like tell some of your colleagues that they no longer work here. So not being tone deaf has been a major learning point for me. Finding the right balance of we're excited to have you join the family, but we recognize that you may not be there with us today.
And going back to your sort of example with the intern too, there's an authenticity there too. We're not we're not telling someone some bright and glossy story. We're like, here's where it is. We're excited for you to be here, but this is what's different here. And I think that helps people get ready and know how they're supposed to show up on day 5 and day 10 and day
That's right.
50.
A lot of it's the leadership that comes with that company too. We've had leaders that stay on and help shepherd their people through the process, and that is really helpful. For more of the like lower level individual contributor folks. And then we've had leaders that like don't come on, and that's often more of a challenge because then the change is then the fault of us as leadership at Bullhorn. And it's like, they blame us. And in some ways they're right. Like there's acquisitions we've done that haven't gone great. And in some ways we own some of that. I'll always own it. But yeah, we play scapegoat for it because the other leadership isn't there. And they really liked that leadership or whatever. Right.
And I've seen both sides of that. I've seen teams in acquisitions get upset that their leadership walked out the door and left them to navigate the change for themselves. And then I've seen teams that get frustrated that their leader's there and there's this kind of anchor back to the past and they can't just get on and move forward into the future. Yeah. So I think it's very individual by individual, team by team complexity kind of that you manage there.
Think of the culture too. Like the companies that we acquire are a lot smaller companies and they have this, family, we're one, it's not all, but a lot of them have this like, we're one. But what they don't say out loud is that they started the business to make money. And the ultimate outcome was probably always to sell or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that profit off that. And so all of a sudden it's this one big happy family. We're building. And then there's this weird dichotomy when not everyone shares in that. And so again, every acquisition is different. There's a lot of dynamics there, but we try our best to recognize and meet people where they're at and bring them over and win them over, if you will.
Yeah. And I like the way you touched on, sharing some of the career success stories, career growth stories, because I've always found in any team, in any change, whether it's an acquisition or we're rolling out a new software or whatever it might be, that people get very stuck in the moment. Like, how does this change affect me now? And if you can broaden that horizon out to 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and let them realize, well, you've got a lot of opportunity to kind of get curious and shape a path here. I think that's one of the best gifts you can open someone's eyes to on a team.
Yeah, and they have to be willing to say, like, I don't even know what the possibilities are, right? Because you worked at a 30 to 200 person company before. Now you're with a 1,400 person company. Like, there are opportunities you don't even know about, right? So don't limit yourself by closing the door and like jump in ship right away. That's what I always just give us a chance. Let us help you navigate some of the things here. So it's all about, the hearts and the minds. These are humans too, right? Their jobs are what we sort of identify ourselves as. And so we always try to keep that at the core of our conversations.
And it can be an identity crisis there. You're right. Like if you're in a company where you wear 3 hats and all of a sudden you're being asked to wear 1 hat, you're like, but I've always been the 3 hat person. So like there's shifts there.
Yeah. Or the project that I was working on was the big sexy thing at my smaller company. And now it's, in a spectrum of many other different things. That's really hard for people.
I guess a follow-on question to that, Kelley, is if you've got, whether it's an acquisition or you're restructuring a team, how much do you look to the work that's being done versus like how the work gets done and how people like to work as you're doing some of that team dynamics and constructing the work groups for the future?
We have really great leadership here at Bullhorn. A lot of our leaders have been around a very, very long time. And so we sort of recognize that the leadership teams are very capable and can design sort of their own structure. I say that not to say like we don't have any hand in it. But with such great leadership, it doesn't need to be prescriptive. because we trust our leadership teams are going to build the things that work in their team. And it's kind of like if I were to start a new job, I wouldn't take everything that works for us now and apply it to the new company, right? Because each company has their own culture and ways of doing things and all of that. So we have leadership that's agile and can, figure things out with all the experiences they have and sort of look at their team and say, here's what I think would work best. With that being said, this kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier about new age HR, if you will, new age. It was a really proud moment in my career here at Bullhorn when my senior HR business partners started getting invited to all the business offsites.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so they ride shotgun with our leaders, and they know the business, and they know the goals and the challenges, and how it's performing and all of that. And so if you want to talk about how you feel success in HR, it's when your teams are being invited to these offsites, and it's just like, yes, that's it. That's it.
I can imagine that feels great. I can imagine that it drives energy for your team members because they're going back to mattering. They're like, hey, they want us there, and they want our voice and experience and energy at the table, which is huge.
I think I have some of the best HR business partners on my team. I'm so proud of them. And most of us have been together for 4 or 5 years now. And so you go back to like the authenticity in the relationships, and I've moved them around a couple times, and each time they've been able to rebuild that with their new business groups. And we brought new leaders in, and they've been able to connect. I'm just really proud of them. So if anyone's listening, no, you can't have them. They're mine forever.
That's right. On the market.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've recently become an accredited practitioner of systems leadership theory, which is a organizational development framework. It's very human-centered, and it's actually something that my dad was doing in the mining industry 30 years ago. So I chanced upon a past relationship. I think I was 12 years old when I met Ian. He's my mentor, and he's been walking me through this for some time. Naturally, in the mining industry, there's a lot going on, a lot of operational complexity, multiple sites, and so on. And HR, going back to the earlier discussion, was once upon a time heavily policy and procedure driven. And as they started shifting through change, new technology coming into the industry, scaling organizations, Ian and the team came in and they built this ethos that HR is not there, or the organizational development consultant is not there as a service, they're there as support. And I think where it goes wrong is often when people call upon HR for the service. It's the same with marketing and IT too. If you're just looking for a transactional service, you're going to be solving the wrong problems. You're going to be putting pressure on and not prioritizing and, under-resourcing. But when you're actually looking at it as a support, and that is, interprofessional work, I think it goes so much further. What is interesting there, and it's something that I see in this work with systems leadership too, is that when people are stuck, whatever's, they've had a rough day at home, or they're under financial pressure, whatever's going on, that actually pausing on the problem doesn't help. And I think a lot of people have, in this world of, we're far more aware of the need for empathy right now, but I think we're overdoing it. And it's just like, okay, that's terrible. Like, how much time can I give you, or how can I support you? And what are we going to do about the work over here? And maybe the work becomes a way out of the problem and the festering that I think some people are going through with different challenges in life.
Yeah, you nailed it. There's 2 types of people. There's people that have personal things going on and they let it sidetrack them from work. And then there's people with personal things going on that you can't keep them away.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things, I've had people go through cancer treatments, or people die, and it's like, look, I can't tell you can't not work, or you can't work, but I'm here for you. So you set the tone. If you need to come back to work because you need the distraction, I will give you the work and we will do that. If you need time away to grieve or to do whatever, or to get treatment, I will give you that as well. So it's like trying to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
I've been through some like really, tough things in my life. And it was great to have work there. And they sort of gave me that space to come in and out. And then there was times where I just had to say like, I'm out for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And the team gave me that space. But I think, when someone's like, their goldfish dies and they need a week off, you're kind of like, give me a break. And it's,
Yeah.
you gotta hold the line with that. Cause like, we can't be ridiculous. But when people are going through real things, like empathy, and honestly, empathy makes them feel so much more connected to their teams and their companies in the aftermath.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Switching gears, I know we had a cool conversation a month or two back around engagement scores and learning about a phenomenon in the business where it was around like personal growth. And you talked me through an identification where actually people weren't able to move forward in their careers as much because a lot of your best people were staying. That traditional churn wasn't creating the opportunity. So maybe we could dive into that because I thought that was a fascinating story.
Yeah, this is one of the more interesting things I've ever done in my career. We did a pulse survey across the company in February, and the engagement scores were down. They've been going down. And they weren't horrible, but they just like weren't great. And so we said, all right, well, what's going on here? And we noticed a lot of the sentiment was around career growth, and you could just see it. People feeling stuck. I don't feel like I'm growing. I'm not moving. I haven't been promoted, like all that stuff. And then I took a look at turnover, and it's way down. Turnover has been way down. And, there is a very healthy thing when people leave the company. And I always say I shouldn't have any expectation that anyone's going to spend their whole life here. Like if they have a chapter here and they go on, like we should always cheerlead and support their success and their movement. But the good thing for the company is it means other people get opportunity when someone leaves. So we have this whole flywheel, and we were like, it got stuck. It's stuck. People aren't leaving. People aren't moving internally. And so we were like, all right, well, and then there was some like toxicity things in the comments and things like that as well. And you look at the external market, and, one of the reasons people aren't leaving is there aren't new jobs, and they're not getting new jobs, or they can't get a new job. And that for us was like, we don't want people here who hate it here. If you're unhappy and you're bringing that to work every day, we don't want that for you, right? I don't want that for any of my friends or family. Like life sucks when you're miserable. So we offered a voluntary leave program, and we announced it in April, and anyone in the company was eligible to take it. And we announced a package that came with it. And we basically freed folks up if they were not happy here or wanted to leave for whatever reason that they could. And so there was a lot of talk about it on my executive team, and I internally had so much heartburn. Oh my God, what are we doing? Is everyone going to take it?
It was open for all.
Yeah, like my high performers are all going to leave, and all the you just didn't know. So we launched it, and we had a window open where people could, sign up for it, if you will, and also put the reason that they were considering it in. And I thought, first of all, it was way lower. The people who wanted it were way lower than I thought, which was like good. And then the reasons were really interesting. And so I want to say, I don't remember exact numbers now, but we had like in the 80-ish, 88 people sign up for it originally. Yep. And by the end of it, I think it was like 73 or 74 that ended up taking it. We had people who put their names on the list and then pulled back and said, no, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm crazy. We had people that said, I just want a promotion and there's nothing open. And I was able to go and say, so-and-so is leaving. There's going to be a role open.
Interesting. So you had that mapping in real time.
Yeah. And that was the cool part of it too, is like, so there were, 15-ish or so people that ended up staying. But the cool part was the number of people that came up to me and said, this was so cool that you guys offered this, and I thought about taking it. But what it made me think is like, why would I ever leave this? I love it here. And so now I feel recommitted. But like, people took that and made a choice to say, I want to be here. I have a choice to leave with a nice package, but I choose to stay. And that was the amazing outcome of this program.
That's a super powerful outcome. And I wonder, when you were planning all of this, you must have been, like you said, getting all the negatives from the leadership team. Oh my gosh, what if we lose these key people, and how disruptive is this going to be?
No, surprisingly, our leadership team was on board with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we had great discussions about it, but I don't really remember anyone being like, that's a terrible idea. We were all just like, it could be an interesting idea, and there's going to be some, potential fallout, but we're willing to accept that because we want people here who are really engaged and connected with the company.
Yeah.
So
that's super neat.
Yeah.
And when you think about that kind of intentional thought about, well, would I take the package, and what do I love about being here at Bullhorn, or whichever company people are going to be a part of in these situations, it is a chance to re-recruit people that are on your team that are just kind of in the grind, in the hustle, and aren't stopping and, having that moment of appreciation or gratitude too.
That's re-recruit is a perfect way to put it. It was such an unintentional thing of this program I didn't see coming, but it was like very natural, and it was very powerful. So,
and I think very human-centered too, because on one hand, there's a real swagger there. It's like, hey, we believe this is a great place to work, and if you don't want to be here, well, we'd like to help you find your way to something that's better for you. So
definitely.
So it's like, we know we're good, and we don't want you to just feel locked in here. On the other hand, it's I would imagine, particularly with the culture and the core values, a lot of your team saw it for what it was, which is you're trying to help the collective we of the teams. And even if they weren't even considering it, they're like, hey, this is something that we don't see happen in other organizations that our, husbands, wives, friends are at.
100%. I mean, look, I've worked at companies that were not the right fit for me. And I was unhappy, and I was able to find something different. And I know what it's like to go to work and be unhappy and feel unfulfilled. And like, that sucks. And so I don't want people to feel that way. And so giving people a runway to go explore something that can make them happy. Like, there's a lot of great companies out there, and a lot of places where they probably have a great fit and a great life. And there's no need for us to stay in one place if we're not happy.
That's neat. Love that story.
Yeah.
I've got a final question that I'm intrigued about, particularly, Kelley, given that you've got a large software platform and a lot of the various talents that go into building and sustaining software. The gig economy and side hustles have been around for a while, but with AI coming out, there's a lot of talk out there in the press that teams are going to be able to stand up new apps and new products without all of the heavy investment, and you can use AI. So are you seeing or sensing that in our futures that we're going to see more side hustling, more, startups alongside day jobs, or how does that play out, in your crystal ball?
I think where real AI is going to come into play, and this is actually a plug for Bullhorn, is when it's embedded in the platform, and it's just a part of the workflows, and it actually isn't just integrating into the current workflows; it's changing the workflows fundamentally. So again, I think the companies that are going to rise up and see growth out of it are ones that have products that are already embedded to where you live, you work, you do all those things, and are just naturally a part of that. And Bullhorn has launched Amplify, and it's embedded in our platform, and it's changing the workflows of how staffing agencies recruit and all of that. So for me, gig economy, people are going to try out a lot of things and see all that, and we'll have some disruption, but I think the ones that are going to really be long lasting are kind of where we live and work already.
I love that you raised workflow too, because I think it's easy to build a little feature that does something very well, but we're all in so many tools and systems. So where your workflow is I actually think is where teams build a lot of their energy, and it's where their innovation can have the most impact too, because it scales.
I think AI will be disruptive enough that it's not just a new technology. It will embed and make a new way of working.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to like, this is cool stuff for us. It's change management. It's, how do you, my HR team especially, like, how do we change the way that we work and interact with people and use this new technology? We haven't nailed it yet. That's for sure.
No, neither of which.
No, but we're getting there. We're seeing more and more productive gains. That's my opinion on AI. It's not a very super techie one.
No, but I'm all about the people. That's why team is such a unit of measure and fascination for me. And I think that the technology will always be driven by the people that use it. I don't see AI running the world anytime soon.
Well, let's just be honest. There's a judgment call that AI cannot make, right? So like if we can use AI to do all the like admin BS and like the lower level work and like things that are automated, great. But there's always going to be, I think, a judgment call.
Yeah.
So like, AI can't fire someone.
No.
So I feel like my job security is very safe, but I think it will allow us to do work that is more about relationship and more value add, and it'll allow us to get rid of some of the admin stuff for sure.
Yeah. AI can't even take my order properly at Carl's Jr., and that really frustrates me. I'm like, just give me a real person.
I know. I've been trying to use the AI chatbots lately. Normally I just pick up the phone and call because I'm like very impatient, but I've been trying to like try out, always
It's
have
terrible.
to go to the agent anyways. So it's like, we're a long ways off.
No, that's it. Well, I think the future's bright for teams, and I think technologies like Bullhorn that help teams, add to their members and engage with future talent.
Yes.
We've got a long and bright future ahead.
100%. Recruiters like having the real human element.
Yeah,
All for that. So
that's neat. Well, thanks for your time today, Kelley. We've covered some great stuff. I really do love that that kind of voluntary leave program and the re-recruit energy that it brought to the team, and some of those views on onboarding acquired teams are really, I think, unique and very impactful and powerful. So I'm sure a lot of listeners will get a lot from that. If anyone wants to connect with you and bounce ideas around if they're facing acquisitions or growth or deployment of AI or whatever it might be, how do they best find you?
yeah, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. It's Kelley with an EY. I always must say that. But yeah, Kelley Morse on LinkedIn at Bullhorn. I appreciate you saying that. I think, sometimes I look around and I'm like, who is the adult in the room? And it's like, oh, it's me, and we always have a little bit of imposter syndrome, but it's nice to hear that some of the things that we're doing, resonate and are landing the way that I think we're trying to make them land. So thank you for that.
No, you bet. Well, thanks for sharing the stories, and I look forward to staying connected.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelley.
Thank you for joining us. Remember that by embracing vulnerability, trusting our intuition, and approaching challenges with compassion, we not only strengthen our teams, but also pave the way for a future where collaboration thrives. If you're hungry for more insights, strategies, and research on collaboration, head over to thefutureofteamwork.com. There, you can join our mailing list to stay updated with the latest episodes and get access to exclusive content tailored to make your team thrive. Together, we can build the future of teamwork. Until next time.